Kenyans had mixed views on that $3 billion budget presented by Treasury last week, especially the fact that once again a huge chunk of the budget will go to recurrent expenditure. Now, a new proposition has especially angered informal motorcycle taxis in the country. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich has proposed to amend the insurance rules to require all passenger-carrying motorcycle taxis, or bodas as they're called here, to have insurance cover for passengers and pedestrians. The move is meant to aid in providing financial assistance for victims of the motorcycle accidents, which of course are quite common on Kenyan roads. Well, let's find out more about how Kenya's insurance sector will approach this new legislation. We're joined by CEO of insurance firm Jubilee Holdings, Dr. Julius Kipng'etich. Very great to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you.
Now, of course, we know this new bill has raised huge questions, of course, around how it will be enforced, given that, of course, the motorcycle or boda sector is largely informal. Now, as an insurance firm, give us some sense of how you're going to approach this in terms of organizing payments and, of course, the risk that it poses to insurance firms in the country.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. I think the first thing we need to understand is the scope of the boda sector. As we speak now, there are around 1 million of them,
right,
and they are growing very fast, probably at a rate of between 5 to 10% year on year. As we speak now, only 40% of them are insured, which is a challenge, which means 60% are not insured by law. And then on top of that, the insurance is just restricted to the property itself and they themselves. But most of them have been turned into means of transport over the years. In fact, as we speak now, for the lower end of the market, the bodas are the most popular means of transport. Now, as a result, many of them have put their passengers at risk. If you look at public hospitals in Kenya today, there are special wards for accidents as a result of bodas. And most of them are fractures because most of them don't have helmets, then they have broken limbs, and that is where the challenge is. Right. So the finance minister is bringing into the bracket of insurance this sector which previously had avoided it. Now, the insurance industry has always been ready. The only challenge in this sector is that they are not organized. So we are having discussions with the National Transport and Safety Authority to organize them into savings and credit societies, what we call in Kenya SACCOs. And Kenya has very popular SACCOs in Africa. So we are going to organize them into SACCOs so that then they have a register so that it's easy to track them, because as we speak now, it's more or less a lawless group. And so therefore, the insurance industry is gearing itself to giving them proper insurance. It's going to be difficult at the beginning. Reason why is because it's sort of, as you said, very informal, and we must formalize it so that then it's insured, so that then we cannot put public passengers at risk. Yes.
But are insurance firms in Kenya keen on taking on this market? Give us a sense of whether they're likely to contribute to high loss ratios in insurance firms. Of course, insurance firms in Kenya are currently seeing a high loss ratio when it comes to the motor insurance business. So are insurance firms rushing to include them?
What I can say is that we have no choice.
Right.
If you look at insurance companies, the formal market is largely saturated now, and it must move as a way of expanding and increasing the customer base into the SME. And this falls squarely in the small and medium enterprises. So therefore, we as insurance companies must find a formula. Right. Now, in the past, the insurance industry, when they're insuring motor, creates a motor pool. And what kills the motor pool is corruption. So the poison in our system that we must all address collectively is corruption. And once we are able to deal with corruption, then we reduce the loss ratios, and as a result, it makes it an insurable risk. So these are things we are going to work together. There have been some insurance companies who have taken the lead in the last few years, and from the statistics that we receive through the regulator, it's a profitable thing. And so therefore, once we remove corruption and we organize the market, it's easy to estimate the risk. And I believe, okay, that this is a risk worth taking by the insurance industry.
We'll discuss that corruption a little bit more, but first, very quickly, how are insurance firms in Kenya including the SMEs into their business? Do you have the products for them right now?
Yes,
Right.
the regulators approved, if you look at the register of the regulators, approved some SME products in largely many areas, in medical, in motor, in home insurance. All that is already beginning to happen because insurance penetration in Kenya is only 2.7%. We can double it in the next 5 years if we now go into the SME space, because largely it has just rotated around the formal economy, people with salaries, and that space is largely exhausted now. So we must go in the SME space. The special thing about the SME space is that typically an SME person compared to a formal person earns double the salary, and they are 4 times the number in terms of quantum. So it's a very large market. The only challenge, it's not formalized and they don't receive a regular income. If we sort out now how to ensure people don't receive a regular income by just being creative in the way they pay their premiums. And that's one thing we have discussed with the regulator, and we will have some way of getting the premiums in a regular way and serving them by covering them under risk. One of the things that we need to understand, largely much of Africa, is that risk mitigation exists in the economy.
Right.
It's just that it's not the way we in the insurance industry approach that risk. So we are very formal in the way we approach the risk. But if you look at once a risk occurs, how do people deal with it? In Kenya, they use what we call a rambe.
Okay.
So in fact, if you look at most of these accidents that occur, when it does happen, people just pull their resources.
Right.
And so we're asking them, why don't you do it beforehand? Take an insurance cover so that then you don't have to call your friends and burden the community by raising money after the event. And that is really the approach we are taking now.
Now let's address this issue of corruption in the sector. We know the new Insurance Act, it aimed to sort of, tackle some of the issues in that area. We know President Kenyatta actually declined to sign some of those changes into law. So what are you expecting? What do you hope to see from that new law?
What I can say about the corruption issue, it's a sad issue in the insurance industry globally, but even here in Kenya. On average, 40% of insurance claims are fraudulent. And a lot of effort now is going towards making sure that these claims are well vetted, are looked at into by experts, so that then we pay genuine claims and we weed out fraudulent claims.
Right.
One of the measures we are taking as Jubilee is to share information about fraudsters. We are going to be open about it so that then we can warn others about that this problem is serious and we can do something about it. Then coming to what you are saying, what the president did. For a long time, intermediaries, the brokers and agents have been keeping money so that then the premiums don't reach the underwriter on time. So what the president sought to cure was let this money go straight to the underwriter, and then the underwriter pays the intermediaries, the broker and the agent from that pool, so that then it is quick. Because many people have lost their policies because the money never reached the underwriter. So what happened last year is Parliament amended the president's proposal, the original proposal, and so when it reached the president for signing, the president rejected and returned the bill to Parliament and said, I propose that the bill be read in the original format. I believe Parliament will not go against the president, and that will improve access by the underwriters to the money, and so therefore they can process the claims faster. So it's a way, yes, I agree with you, of addressing the corruption issue, because if somebody is holding the money and not reaching the underwriter, you can say it's a form of corruption.
Right,
yes.
That's true. Now, very quickly, before we go, I'd like to get your take on the winners and losers looking at this year's budget. We know Kenya's private sector, they've complained quite a lot about this budget. They argue that the government is making the operating environment for private sector companies tougher right now. Now, you're, of course, the former CEO of one of Kenya's retail giants, Uchumi. It is limping today, and that's happening to a lot of companies in Kenya. So what are your thoughts on today's environment, business environment, and is it conducive?
What I can say is that we have one of the most efficient tax systems in Africa, which is a good thing. I think the challenge in Kenya is how the tax is used.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of Kenyans pay twice for the services. We pay taxes so that then we get security from the police. But in all our neighborhoods, we have also additional security guards. So that's double. So I think the greatest complaint by many Kenyans is the government using our taxes efficiently. I don't think it's about the quantum. It's all about, is the tax used efficiently? And I guess, and I agree largely that our tax is consumed by a public service which is not supporting as efficiently as is required the economy. And that creates that tension. And so the corporate, so I think the finance minister is reaching his limits in the tax. And I would suggest to Rotich that he should not increase taxes further than he has increased it. What he now needs to focus is, one, tax administration. Are we collecting the taxes due? And then also efficiency of the public service in the way it uses taxes, so that the public can benefit.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Of course, that was Dr. Julius Kipng'etich. He is the CEO of Jubilee Holdings here in Kenya.